All right, so where are we at? And I want y'all to y'all don't have to answer them aloud, but just answer them to yourself in terms of if you think you know this stuff. Because we covered everything on here. We may not have went into depth as much as we wanted to on some of this stuff, but we will. Um, so agency relationships, how are they established? How are agency relationships established? All right. Um, you have a specific agency, you have a general agency, you have a universal agency. The agency is that the principal hires a fiduciary. The principal is the seller, the fiduciary is you, the agent. So we need to have a thorough understanding of how agency relationships are established. We went over that. So you got to ask yourself, do you know specific agency? Do you know universal agency? Do you know general agency? All right. Um, all right. Now, what types of listing agreements are there? We should know that. We should know that there's 5 types of listing agreements. Exclusive right to sell being the best one. Exclusive agency being the one where only the seller can find a buyer. We have an open listing where actually there's 4 types of listing. I'm sorry, y'all. 4 types of listing. We have an open listing where the seller allows multiple brokers to sell the property with the selling broker, the only one getting the commission. And then we got net listings, which are not illegal in Ohio, but they could violate your fiduciary duties, and they're actually probably outlawed in some states. All right, so those are our 4 types of listings. You got to ask yourself if you can recite those like that. Maybe you can't recite them like I just did, but at least you should know what the 4 are. All right, buyer, broker, tenant representation contracts. Those are akin to listing contracts for sellers. Buyers don't have listing agreements. Buyers have buyer broker representation contracts. These 2 things is what creates the agency once signed by the client. So we should have a good understanding of those. There's 3 types. There's an exclusive right to represent. There's a non-exclusive right, and then there's one where there's no obligation there. You can leave whenever you want, and the client can leave whenever they want. It's a non-exclusive agreement that doesn't really carry a whole lot of weight. More than likely, the only 2 types of contracts you're going to get into is an exclusive right to sell and an exclusive right to represent most of the time. All right. Other brokerage relationships. Y'all should know what a transaction and a facilitator is. Transaction broker is that's how the most important thing that y'all should remember about a transaction broker is that they do not have an agency relationship. They are there to guide the buyer and the seller through the process, answering questions for both sides, keeping an unbiased position, and there's no allegiance to either side. They're just there to manage the process, and they charge a fee for that same thing for a facilitator. All right. We need to know what a power of attorney and other assignments of authority. That goes back to the whole specific agency. That goes to your general agency. That goes to your universal agency. But just know the definition of power of attorney for the test, and know the difference between power of attorney and attorney in fact. A power of attorney is the actual document. An attorney in fact is a person. So that's maybe something that you may want to write down, retain. You might get a question about that. All right. Now, we need to know what terminates agency relationship in the broker service agreements. All right. I think it's about 8 or 9 things that terminate them. I would remember about 4 or 5 of them. Some of the other things never really happen. And we'll go over that as we keep growing over, we're running the questions that ask stuff about that. Now, B, agent duties. What are your fiduciary duties? Remember, old car, obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, reasonable care, and accounting, or accounting and reasonable care. You should be able to, by now, recite those similar to the way that I did it. All right. Agent duties to customers, non-clients. These are people that you do not have a fiduciary relationship. They are not your principal. Typically, you owe them honesty and fairness. You need to know that. All right. And then going back up here, the disclosure of agency. All right, you should know what some of the requirements of disclosure of agency and the documents and forms that we use to do that, some of those. But this is a fairly easy one. You disclose agency almost immediately upon meeting that person, letting them know what your role is in the transaction. All right. Disclosure of possible conflicts of interest and self-interest. You do not get into an agency relationship if there's a conflict of interest. All right. Typically, the conflict of interest comes when the agent has an interest in a property that the person is trying to sell or buy. And you have to disclose that too. If you own property and you're listing the property, or you own property anywhere in Ohio, and you're not even if you're listing it, you got to let the public know that you're an agent, a real estate agent. All right. So that's agency. You got to ask yourself, where am I? Where do I really don't know about those sections? Is and then the numbers, but that's agency there. And then we go up to contracts. The general principles of contract law. What makes a contract valid? Right? What are general principles of contract law? All right. Elements necessary for a contract to be valid. We know that mutual assent or offer and acceptance, consideration, competent parties, and legal purpose. We should be able to remember that and know which each one of those do. But more importantly, we know our contract is not valid if we're missing one of those. All right. We need to know about the statute of fraud that says all real estate contracts should be in writing. There is one exception to a 1-year lease, but you need to know what the statute of frauds is and why it's important. Okay, and the differences is all real estate contracts should be in writing is what the statute of fraud says, and it's very important. Offer and a contract. Who is the offerer and who is the offeree? We need to know that. All right, we need to know about counter offers, which is going to come in down here somewhere, I believe. But we need to know about what an offer is, and when we send the offer over, that the seller can counter offer. He or she can reject the offer, counter offer, or accept it unequivocally. All right. So we talked about that. Enforceability of contracts. All right. What makes a contract enforceable? Well, first off, it has to be valid and it has to be in writing. If it's not in writing, it's not enforceable. All right. Sometimes it could not be enforceable. I like to say it's not enforceable. All right. If it's in writing, it could be enforceable. All right. But just know the enforceability of contracts. We talked about that. We're gonna go over some questions about that today. Know the difference between voidable, and unenforceable contracts. The one that you're going to get tested on most is voidable contracts. So if you're asking yourself, what should I be studying about valid, void, and voidable contracts? You need to know some of the things that can make a contract voidable. We already know that void is when it's missing one of the key four components of a valid contract. But voidable is some subsequent event or something happened after the contract was valid that made it become voidable by one of the parties. All right, we talked about bilateral and unilateral contracts. Not a whole lot, but we're going to run into questions about that. On these two, I would just say know the definitions. And then find a couple of examples of a bilateral contract, and then find a couple of examples of a unilateral contract. All right, so know the definitions of these. The nature and use of option agreements. We're going to go over those a little bit more in depth and where they're used, but I gave an example yesterday. An option agreement is an agreement between a potential buyer, and a seller, where the buyer is putting an option to buy. He's not putting an offer in. So the buyer will have most of the time he puts up a non-refundable option amount, and then they have a due diligence period to find out if they really want to purchase it. Okay, so we talked about option. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Notice delivery, acceptance, and execution of contracts. All right, this is that mailbox rule that Jasmine was talking about on the video. Delivery constitutes an accepted offer. So say, for instance, I put an offer on Tanisha's property and she got it and accepted it and then emailed it back to me. That's acceptance. I don't have to get that email and open it. We need to know about that. We need to know what an accepted offer is and execution of contracts. We're going to talk about a lot more about all this stuff too. Now, we haven't talked much about the appropriate use, risk, and advantages of electronic signatures and paper transactions, but that's an easy question. It's a low-hanging fruit. Most of the time, they're going to ask you something like, why is electronic signatures more and paperless transactions more favorable in today's times? And the answer will be like, because it saves costs. All right. So we'll talk a little bit more about electronic signatures, but we're not gonna go crazy on it. All right. And the rights and obligations of parties to a contract. What do those parties have to perform, and what rights do they have within the contract? So what did they agree to perform in the contract, and what other obligations do they have in the contract? All right. And then what rights does the contract afford them? Possible remedies for breach of contract or non-performance of contract. That's specific performance. Know the definition of specific performance. Remember, when you see remedy, most of the time the remedies are for a breach of contract is maybe the earnest money is liquidating damages or specific performance. We need to know what terminates rescission of contracts are. And this is coming straight from PSI. This isn't me making this up. This is coming straight from them. Now, what we do have to do is we have to talk more about addendums and amendments to contracts. We have to go over purchase agreements, contract contingencies. We talked about that the other day. I'm not really going to cover lease and rental agreement. There, you won't see that stuff on the test. You got a lease purchase agreement. All right, we'll probably deal with some questions. We're going to get competent on these by dealing with the questions that come up. All right, types of leases. All of those things, these are things that you might not get a question but one question on these. And then handling multiple offers and counter offers, and that's contracts. All right, we have somebody asking a question here. All right. Yeah, I sent this to everybody, but I'll send it again real quick. Let me get my email up. Hold on. I'm gonna send it. Who else needs a copy of this? Let me know in the feed, and then I'll see it. I know Maria, you said you needed it. Um, Let me send this to you. All right, so let me get back to Zoom, see if anybody else need it. You said no, I'll send it to you. Tanisha, you need a copy of it. And Maria. Okay, so let me send that to y'all right now. Y'all just have 2 copies of it. All right, Maria, what's your email? You can type it in the feed. I know you can't talk, so just type it in the feed for me. And then Tanisha, what's your email?
First name, last name, 29 @gmail.com.
And you said first name, last name. What else, Tanisha?
And let me in, let me in.
You in here? I hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So here we go. And you said first name, last name. One more time. First name, last name. What else, Tanisha? Oh yeah, I gotta go over that with y'all too. But you hold on, hold on. I think I got it on my phone. Tanisha, hold on one second. Tanisha, did you get that manual too? That 300-page manual? Email coming across with materials, class materials on there. Save this in important emails folder or something.
Charger.
All right. I just sent y'all everything. Okay. So y'all got that. All right. So now what I want you to do, Maria asked me, how do you print this thing? So let me share my screen with y'all. Hold on one second, y'all. So let's see here. Show you this is how you do it. So Maria, you got Gmail, right? I believe so. Yeah, no, you got me.com. All right. So let me share my screen with you. I'm gonna just show you how to do it on Gmail. And hopefully it's the same way on me, or I'll have to get you a flash disk with the drive. But this is how you print it, right? So th when I send you the email, you got to print it out of the email. So when you click on the manual like this here, you got to print it here. If you download it and try to print it, it's going to ask you for a password. All right. So let me do that again. You open up the email that I sent you, click the attachment, the PDF, bring it up like this, and then hit the print button over here, and it should print. You see how it's not asking me for a code when I go to print this, right? So I can print it. Let me just make sure I can print it. I'm gonna print one page of it. And I wouldn't print the whole thing. I just print by sections because you might not. I mean, unless you want to, you can do it. From one to one, I'm gonna print the first page, and my printer should be printing, and that's it. And it is printing. So that's how you do it. I'm gonna do that again. So when you go to the email that I sent you, if you're in Gmail, if you got Gmail, it's gonna work great. I don't know about the ME, but it should work the same way if you print it out of the email. So Maria, all you do is you go to the email that I sent you, like I sent Rayshawn this email um last year. I clicked it. Now the PDF comes up. You click the PDF and you print out of here. Don't download it or anything. It should be a print button right here. And then mine's printed, and I got the paper right here, that first page. So it prints that way. If you download it, you got to enter in the password. Okay, that's how you print it. So if you were to go say for and you can, well, you can't save it from here. So now it costs somewhere in the neighborhood of about, if you take this thing to like Kinko's, or not, but I said King, I ain't even know Kinko's no more. You take this thing to like Staples or Office Max or something like that, it's probably gonna cost you about $40 to print it. Because I think it's $6 a page, it's 300 pages. 6 cents a page, 300 pages, what's that? No, it's only gonna be about $20. It ain't, no, it's gonna only be about $20. All right. So that's how you print it. But let me see. Somebody else asked a question. Let me see here. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, what I would do, Maria, is I would just set up a class email, like something like Maria, or just set up your realtor email because you're about to be a realtor in a month or two. Just do like realtormaria@gmail.com, and then I'll send it to that email, and then you'll have a copy that you can print. That's what I would do. Just create a new Gmail account, something like something that you might use when you're a realtor, and I'll send it to that, and you can print it straight out of Gmail. All right. Yours is at yours. You have a Gmail, Maria? Because I see you said I said right. Yeah, right. You want to use their yeah, right. So if you're gonna do that, Maria, create a Gmail account. Unless you do you already have a Gmail account?
I have one created.
Okay. So I'm gonna
I
just
just sent it to you in the chat.
I
I
see
didn't
it.
even think about changing the email.
Hold on. Yeah, let me copy that link. I'm gonna just send it to you again. That way you can have a manual. Um Here, let me get off of that real quick. Hold on, let me send you a copy of this book. And then you just print it just like that out of the email and you'll be good.
That works. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. And this is gonna be the Ohio PSI manual, Ohio. And if you have any problems, call me while you're trying to print it. Okay, so look, okay, I just sent it to you. All right, so let's get to work here. Right. So on that stuff that I just went over on the bulletin, this right here, let me bring it back up. And I want to do this because I want y'all to get prepared. So, because some of y'all might be out in front, some of y'all might be right on schedule, and some of y'all may be a little bit behind, but that's okay. We can catch up. But what I want, the next thing that we did, so right, so this is what we're going off of. So what have we done? We talked about 19% of your test is going to be contracts. So it's 80 questions, 19%, it's going to be about 15 to 16 questions about contracts on there. I had one person get 95% of those right. So they only missed one question out of contracts when they went to go take the test. Here's all the things that you got to know about contracts on there, and it's itemized for you. And this is straight from PSI. They're telling you what they're going to test you on. This is a book pamphlet from PSI. It's the Ohio Department of Commerce, Division of Real Estate and Professional License, Real Estate Salesperson, and Broker Candidate Information Bulletin. And so down here in this bulletin, they're telling you, hey, look, this is what we're going to test y'all on contracts. So notice 19% of this stuff, 19% of this is going to make up your contract. So 15 to 16 questions. What do we need to pass? We need what? 58 questions to pass the test. All right. We need to was it 56? What is it? Yeah, I think it's 56. 56 out of 80 is 70%. And let's just do some quick math. Just make sure it's 56. I'm pretty sure it's 56 that you need to pass the test. 56 out of 80. I always like to do the math. Make sure. And that's 70%. So we need 56. So right off the bat, if we can get a high number of contracts right, say for instance we get 15, we only got to get 41 more questions right? And we got like 7 more sections. But agency comes into play, and agency's 13% of the test. So what's 13% of 80? You're looking about it like another 80, about another 11 to 12 questions. So between contracts and agency, that's 30 questions. If we can get, say, 27 of those right, we almost halfway there. Right? We can get 27 to 25. Our goal is to get 25 of those right. So then now we only got to get what? Another 30, 31 right out of all of the rest of the sections on the test. If we can get 25 of 30 right, that would be 80%. That'll be the least that we would want to do. The next thing, so now remember, we talked about agency and creating the relationship that we're about to create. We create that with a contract. But now, what are we selling? So we dealt with the people in the contract, in the relationship. So the person, the seller, we dealt with the buyer, we dealt with our relationship with the broker and the realtor, but we haven't talked anything about the property. So after we go there, we're going to go down here. The next week, this is what we're going to be talking about for those who want to get a head start. We're going to get to property rights next. 10% on the test. That's eight questions. It's going to come out of property ownership. So this is the next section that y'all need to learn about. We learned about how we establish the relationships. Then we learned about the contracts that we use to create the relationships. Now we're going to learn about property rights and how that person that we are either representing as the seller or representing as the buyer, what are they taking back? What rights are they giving up or selling? And what rights are they buying? And property ownership. For property ownership, we're going to go over to finance and how we pay for this property. So we didn't create a relationship with a contract. We know all about the property and how that person is going to own it. Now, how are they going to pay for it? All right. And then after that, and then finance is 10 questions. So what's that? 8, 16, and then we said 30 with the other one. So now we have 46 questions. If we do good on those 4, we're going to pass the test, period. If we get 80% here, 80% here, 85% on contracts, 90% on agency, you're gonna pass the test. All right. And so some of the ones that we won't focus on are like land use controls is 5%. We're gonna go over it, but it's not as important. Then you're gonna get down here to stuff like disclosures, that's spillover from agency. Right? Property management, all this other stuff, we go like this stuff is so easy that we're going to get those questions right. What they're trying to test you on, the meat of the test is those 4 things that I just talked about. Really, property ownership, finance, agency, contracts, and really principles and practice too. So that's and we use this as our roadmap to help us. And evaluations is important, but this is stuff that's going to just make it like overkill. All right, valuation, that's appraisals and stuff like that. So what we're going to do tonight, remember class participation is well taken. And for those who wasn't here when the class started, I was telling the class, like, this is like my 5th time that I've been doing this. So there's probably been about 40 people that I've helped through the process of this whole getting your license stuff. And I think the class is making, the big mistake that I think our class is making is that we're not participating enough. And I think that y'all need to touch this stuff more. Like, y'all need to be reading the questions. And it's hard for me because I can't see y'all. I don't know who's paying attention, you know, who's not paying attention. And that's okay. I mean, it's got to be recording it so you can go back and listen to it. And sometimes you can't have your attention devoted completely to it. I get it. It's 7 o'clock, 7:30 now. But the more you participate and the more that you touch this stuff while we're in the Zoom class and the more you make mistakes, because a lot of these mistakes are correctable instantly and you'll get it. So more class participation, even if you got to just type the stuff in the feed, that's what we need. And it's only going to help you retain this stuff more. All right. So one last thing about property ownership, it's a heavy definition. It's heavy definitions in there. Like it's like if you can master the definitions of property ownership, you can do it in any of them. It's a highly technical section. All right. Highly technical. And because it's dealing with stuff like, look, ownership and severalty. Ownership and severalty means one person. Right? Or sole ownership. But why are they calling it severalty? Severalty sound like it's many people. So it's like a lot of like strange terminologies, and there's a little bit of technicality in there that we got to know our definitions. So what we can't do is be still going over definitions of agency and contracts when we're trying to learn these. All right. So let's go ahead and answer some questions. We're going to do them out of PSI today. We're on contracts, and let's do this one right here. We're going to do this little diagnostic thing right here. Hold on. All right. Let's do this. All right. All right. Let me share my screen. Okay. So we're going to pull stuff out of here that we need to know the definition of. So this says modifications to a real estate contract. All right. Modifications to a real estate contract. Y'all read this too. And if it's not big enough, I'm going to bring it in and make it big enough. No, that's too big. Let's zoom out. That's about the biggest I can get it, y'all. Right there. All right. So modifications to a contract. Well, what's a modification? It's a change. So modification or change to a contract is, does it must be in writing to be enforceable? Now, also, while y'all looking at these questions, these are contract questions. So your mind should shift to the stuff and the definitions that you learned about contracts. All right. So modifications to a contract is that one must be in writing to be enforceable, are enforceable if orally agreed upon, do not require consideration, automatically void the original contract. All right, only one of these is right. Now, what do? We get rid of the noise, so we need to eliminate one of these. We're not trying to answer this question right now. All right, so first thing that we're going to do is look for absolute words like always, never, stuff like that throughout the questions. Are enforceable if orally agreed upon, do not require consideration. This one says must be in writing to be enforceable. Automatically void the original contract. So we need to get rid of one of these. I'm gonna get rid of one, and this is a test, so I can't line through it. I'm gonna get rid of this one. This is a bad answer. Do not require consideration. Well, we know all contracts require consideration. That's one of the 4 or 5 things that make a contract valid. So we're gonna get rid of 3. We need to get rid of one more. All right, somebody in the class in the chat said get rid of 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say number 2.
Yeah, let's get rid of 2. I agree. So now what are we doing? We just got rid of 2. We have a 50, and those 2 that we got rid of is not the answer. All right. So now what have we done? We've given ourselves a 50-50 chance if we close our eyes and pick 1 or 4 to get this right. It's just that simple. Like by eliminating, we just gave ourselves a 50% chance of just picking either one of them and getting it right. All right. But we can do better than that. Modifications to a real estate contract. Is it 1, must be in writing to be enforceable? Is it 4, automatically void the original contract? What do y'all think?
I'm gonna say 1.
A. Oh,
A or 1. Yeah, you know what we
All
mean.
right. We won't see our answers to the end on this. We're going to put must be in writing to be enforceable. I like that answer. That's the one I would have picked. Next question. What is the primary purpose of a purchase and lease contract in real estate? We didn't go over that, but we about to do our process of elimination. And there may be some questions on the test, maybe about 4 or 5 of them. We don't want more than that on the test that we haven't had no clue about. But we haven't talked about this in the class, but let's use our skills to get to the answer for this one. What is the primary purpose of a purchase and lease contract in real estate? Is it 1, to define property boundaries? 2, to establish ownership rights? 3, to outline the terms of the sale or lease? Or 4, to record property improvements? Now I'm gonna get rid of 1 and I'm getting rid of 4. I'm not buying that the primary purpose of purchase and lease contracts in real estate is to record property improvements. No, you're not going to just get me to say that. So I'm getting rid of that now. We got 3 left. We need to get rid of 1 more. Anybody?
Let's get rid of. Let's see.
Now I got somebody saying let's get rid of number 1. And I like that. So we got rid of 1 and 4. Let's read the question over again and put 1 in there. What is the primary purpose of a purchase and lease contract in real estate? Is it to define property boundaries? That's not a primary purpose. So we've gotten rid of 1 and 4. That leaves us only establish ownership rights and outline terms of the sale or the lease. So we're going to go back and read the question to make sure they ain't trying to trip us up because we're about to pick one of these. What is the primary purpose of purchase and lease contracts in real estate? Is it to establish ownership rights? Is it to outline the terms of the sale or lease? What do y'all think? One of those is the answer. That's what you should be thinking on the test. One of these is the answer. I got to pick the right one. And you got to rely on your studies to to get you to that across that finish line. We got one person saying 3 with a question mark. And if you that's not that you got to be convicted to this, Maria. You got to be like 3. No question mark. It's either going because we get them wrong here, we don't get them wrong on the test. So have some conviction and be like 3. So Maria says 3, and I think that's right. But here's the reason why I think it's right. Because a lease does not establish ownership. It establishes a leasehold, in which we are going to go over in property ownership. But a lease establishes a leasehold interest in it, not ownership. You can use it because you're leasing it, but you don't own it. So right off the bat, I knew that it wasn't established property rights, established ownership rights, because a lease could never do that. You don't own it if you're leasing it. So that's why you kind of know that this is the answer. If you knew that. And this question is just as bad as these other 2 that we eliminated, or that answer is. All right, next question. If a buyer fails to complete the purchase of a property as agreed in the purchase contract, what is the most likely legal remedy for the seller to do? Right? Again, if a buyer fails to complete the purchase of a property as agreed in the purchase contract, what is the most likely remedy for the seller? All right. Now, remember when I told you, when you said when we hear remedy, it's 2 things we think about: specific performance and getting that earnest money or liquidating damages. Right? So when you hear remedy, think specific performance or liquidating damages or earnest money, one and the same. All right. So, and here it says sue for specific performance, immediately resell the property, request a public apology, terminate the contract without further action. I'm getting rid of request a public apology. We need to get rid of one more. And somebody said get rid of terminate the contract without further action. We getting rid
No, keep D. I think you should keep D. I'm sorry.
keep D. Okay, keep D. We're going to keep D. But we got rid of request a public apology. All right. So now that leaves us with the question. The question says, if a buyer fails to complete the purchase of a property as agreed in the purchase contract, what's the most likely remedy for the seller? Is it 1, suit for specific performance, 2, immediately resell the property, or 4, terminate the contract without further action? 3 is gone. We need to get rid of 1.
A.
All right. You get rid of A.
Let's get rid of number 2.
Okay, so we get rid of 2 and 3. And once we get rid of the 2, we go back and read the question, make sure they're not tricking us. Because we're about to get ready to answer the question. If a buyer fails to complete the purchase of a property as agreed in a purchase contract, what is the most likely legal remedy for the seller? Is it sue for specific performance or terminate the contract without further action? What do y'all think? Tanisha saying 1.
No, I think the answer is D.
Okay. So we got one person saying 1 and we got one person saying 4. What we need a tiebreaker.
Let's sue.
Who said that? That
Angie.
was Angela. Yeah, that was Angela.
Mhm.
Super specific performance, y'all.
Say that again.
Listen, real quick. I can't be more transparent than I have in that with this question. The reason being is that it just says it right here. What is the most likely legal remedy? remember I told y'all if y'all hear remedy, think of specific performance. Because specific performance is the only legal it's only two remedies really that you're going to get tested on. That's specific performance and liquidating damages. It said legal remedy here, and suing somebody is a legal remedy for specific performance. All right. Not to terminate the contract without further action. Here's why. What if you put an offer on my property? My property, wonderful. And 3 weeks later, you just breached the contract and you go on about your merry way. Now I got to remarket the property. I got to take the property, put it back on the market. What the market gonna think? Something wrong with the property. So you got to pay for that. I'm not terminating the contract without further action. I'm not going to request a public apology. I'm not going to immediately resell a property. You just put my property under contract with no intentions to perform. And I'm suing for specific performance because you either about to buy it or you about to give me some money that's above and beyond the liquidating damages. Right? My property was off the market for 3 weeks and I could have found another buyer. You held me up and really had no intentions to perform. Or maybe you did, but you still caught the outcome is still the same. My property may be stigmatized because it was off the market for 3 weeks and then came back onto the market. And now I might have a difficulty in selling it as fast as I could have. Right?
Not to cut you off, but I kind of experienced this a little bit when I was purchasing a home. That's why I picked D. But I guess I was in the window to be able to cancel the contract. Because don't they give you a window?
They do give you a window, but here's the thing about specific performance. First off, you're very rarely ever going to sue somebody for specific performance. So real life and test life is different. Real life and test life is different. I've been in real estate for 21 years and ain't even ever heard of anybody say I'm suing you for specific performance, let alone see somebody do it. Most of the time they're going after those liquidating damages to earnest money. But maybe you had a contingency in the contract to let you get out of it. If I can't get financing for this property, or if the property fails the inspection, or if something's with the inspection with the property that went wrong, I can get out of the contract. It sounds like that maybe you exercise contingency to let you get out of the contract. All right. But if there's no contingency and there's no way to get out, and here's the thing too, we are looking at the question too. It says legal remedy. The only one on here that's a legal remedy is suing for specific performance. All right. That's the only one that has a remedy to it, is to sue for specific performance, a legal remedy. So we got to use the question as a hint in some cases to see what we're talking about here and picking the correct answer. That's a good exercise, but really what I want y'all to leave this question with is when you hear remedy, your brain should instantly look in your questions and see if this specific performance, because that's probably the answer. But we're going to keep reading because we ain't going to act like we sweet on the test. We're going to stay true to our discipline in the process. But as soon as I read the question and it says something about legal remedy, I'm looking specific performance, or they coming for that earnest money or liquidating damages. The earnest money and earnest money is liquidating damages. So they're one and the same. But there's really only two remedies that you're going to get tested on here. This is one of them. So no specific performance, because y'all, look, we can't get this one wrong. We can't get this one wrong. Not this one. This got to be one of the 56 that we got to get right to get the pass the test. Period. Right? We cannot get this as a definition question, and we've just had a 5 to 10 minute discussion just about this question. We cannot get this question wrong on the test. All right, we're going to get more of these, but we cannot get this one wrong. And the key is legal remedy or remedy. As soon as you hear remedy, think specific performance. Watch, they only ask us one question on a real test about specific performance after we talk. That's how it be. You done study for something, they ain't ask you questions about what But that's how it is, which is why we got to cover so much ground with this. All right. So the next question, here it is. In the context of contract law, consideration refers to which of the following? I don't. Now remember, we made our short definitions for these words. This is one where we're begging them to answer access this question on the test. This is a definition question, and we want them to access these type of contract questions, because if they do, we about to get 15 out of 16 or all 16 of them right. Period. All right. So this is another question that we got to get right. So pretty much what they're asking you is, what's the definition of consideration? Is it one, a thoughtful review of contract terms? Is it two, something of value exchange? Is it three, the intentional creation of legal relationships or relations? Is it four, a formal acknowledgement of the contract? I'm getting rid of four. I'm getting rid of four. And see, the thing is when you kind of know the answer, you can get rid of them faster. Okay, Tanisha, she said get rid of three. It's two Tanishas in the class, by the way. Tanisha said get rid of three. I agree. So once we get rid of the first two questions or answers, we read the question again, so we can't get tricked. In the context of contract law, consideration refers to which of the following? Is it a thoughtful review of contract terms or something of value exchanged? And if we know the definition, we on to the next one. All right, Tanisha said two, something of value exchange, and I agree with that. All right, next question. All right. Now, we haven't talked about this at all. All right, but let's see if we can answer it. A client is considering leasing a commercial property and prefers a lease agreement that allows for rent adjustments based on the changes in the Consumer Price Index, CPI. Which type of lease should the broker recommend? You would never get this question. Oh, maybe you would, but we're going to try to get to it. And so this is a rent adjustment lease that's based on like the stock market, a consumer price index. That's what that is. And so the lease increase would increase yearly with the consumer price index. All right. So they're asking which type of lease should the broker recommend? Should it be a fixed lease, a graduated lease, a percentage lease, or a gross lease? Well, right off the bat, I'm going to just answer this question. A fixed lease and a gross lease is the same thing, pretty much. A fixed lease that's what you're going to pay. They done told you what it is. It's fixed. It's not going to change. A gross lease is one where that they're telling you that everything's included in that lease. All right. So I'm getting rid of those two, a percentage lease or a graduated lease. All right. So a percentage lease is typically a lease that is in retail, where you're going to give the operator or the owner, you know how somebody work on tips and they get paid like $3 or $4 an hour, and then they get tips, and so they're going to get paid a flat amount. So in a percentage lease, you're going to pay a flat amount, but it ain't going to be what you normally would pay if you just had a regular lease. So I might pay you $2,000, and then you get 3% of all my sales. So say, for instance, I paid you $2,000 and I had $100,000 worth of retail sales that month. And the percentage lease is 3% of my sales. So now I paid you $2,000 plus 3% of 100,000. That is $3,000. So the total lease amount is $5,000. All right, so that's a percentage lease. So I'm going to pick a graduated lease just by looking at the answers. And this is probably this is highly technical. So if we get to a question on this on the test, we're going to talk about leases a little bit, but it's a whole bunch of other stuff that I'd rather you know than talking about a graduated or a percentage lease. Okay. So next question on that. All right. Now, a real estate contract in which one party agrees to sell a property without receiving anything in return is generally what? let's ask ourselves, what are they trying to test us on? What they're trying to test us on is, we can look at the answers: unenforceable, voidable, enforceable, automatically void. They're testing us on if we know what an unenforceable contract, what a voidable contract is, what an enforceable contract or a void contract is. All right. So let's read it again. A real estate contract in which one party agrees to sell a property without receiving anything in return is generally what? Is it unenforceable? Is it voidable? Is it enforceable? Is it automatically void? All right. Let's read it again. A real estate contract in which one party agrees to sell a property without receiving anything in return is generally, I'm going to get rid of voidable. I'm getting rid of voidable. We need to get rid of one more. And I think,
Let's get rid of number 4.
okay, so we're going to get rid of, Tanisha, you're saying get rid of 4. Both Tanishas are saying get rid of 4.
This Angie, but yes, get rid of
Oh,
4.
Angie said get rid of 4. So we're getting rid of 2 and we're getting rid of 4, right, Angie?
Yes.
Yes, I agree with get rid of 4.
Okay. So that leaves us, let's answer the question. The real estate contract in which one party agrees to sell a property without receiving anything in return is generally what? Is it unenforceable or enforceable?
I'm gonna say enforceable.
Unenforceable or enforceable? You're going to say it's enforceable?
Hold on, let me read the question again. I'm sorry, I'm at work.
Well, I will tell you that we got one.
Unenforceable.
I will tell you that we got one person that says unenforceable, but y'all, on this one, all of y'all wrong.
Dang.
We got rid of the right answer. What is the key in a real estate transaction that makes something valid? All right, this is a teacher moment here. We can't get that one wrong. That's it. That's just like one of them definition questions here. Let me show you. Let me show you. Hold up. Somebody, we gotta mute somebody. I don't know that. We got everybody muted. We got everybody muted. Okay. So I'm gonna bring this up. All right. And this is where we make the mistakes at, because we should never make this mistake again. And we can't make them unless we're answering questions. All right, so here's our manual, right? Valuable consideration. Exchange of valuable consideration for performance by one party by the other party, not love and affection. I'll tell you what that means, but it's exchange of valuable consideration. Valuable consideration makes a contract valid. If you do not have valuable consideration, it's void automatically. It lacks consideration. The previous question, or the couple questions before that one, asked you, what is consideration? Something of value exchange. You need to have something of value exchanged in the transaction, or you do not have a valid contract. It's instantly void. So guess what? When we go back up here to our little polygon, we do not have valuable consideration. All right? Not valid, unenforceable. So in a sense, y'all are right with unenforceable, but these are the trick questions that they put on the test. Watch me be wrong when I put automatically void, but it is going to be void. It's going to be automatically void. All right, on this one. Valuable consideration. If it lacks consideration, it is void. And they're doing that to try to trick y'all. And it worked in this instance. But if we know it going in, we can watch for these types of tricks. Because right here it says, for a contract to be valid, where's it at? It says, if a contract does not meet the requirements of a valid contract, it is not valid, and the parties to it cannot resort to a court of law to enforce its provisions. All right. Valid contracts are legally enforceable by meeting the criteria of contract law, which are these contract validity things right here. Okay. All right. So let's go back to that question. Let me share the screen. We're gonna go back to that question. I'm gonna pick unenforceable because that's what we said. But I think it's automatically void. And there's nothing that we can do. That's why I try to tell y'all to get rid of the worst ones first. Because if you thought that it was unenforceable, then why are we keeping enforceable? All right. So let's just keep it moving. But I think it's automatically void on that one. We'll mark that one too. We'll make sure we go over that one. All right, next question. A buyer locks in a mortgage rate and then the rate increased. What is the impact on the buyer's loan? So what the question is asking you is, this is a finance question. I don't know how this got in contracts, but whatever, we'll answer it. A buyer locks in a mortgage rate and then the rate increases. What is the impact of the buyer's loan? Is it the loan is canceled?
You didn't switch the screen back.
Oh, I ain't sharing it. Yeah, let me know if I do that again. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Y'all need to see that. All right, there you go. Y'all should be able to see it now. It says a buyer locks in a mortgage rate and then the rate increases. What is the impact on the buyer's loan? Is it the loan is canceled? The rate lock is void? The buyer pays a higher rate? The buyer keeps the locked rate? I'm going to get rid of the rate lock is void. We need to get rid of one more. And we haven't went over this, so if you just throw some stuff out there, we'll go over. When we read the answers, we'll go over it and we'll be done with it. All right. So we got somebody in the feed saying get rid of one. I like that too. So we got rid of the loan is canceled and the rate lock is void. So we're gonna go back up here and read the question. A buyer locks in the mortgage rate and then the rate increases. What is the impact of the buyer on the buyer's loan? The buyer pays a higher rate. The buyer keeps the lock rate. Which one we gonna answer with? 3 or 4? All right. We got one person saying D. And we got another person. That's enough for me, and I agree. All right. Here's that question about electronic signatures. All right, this is going to be very similar to, if you get a question about electronic signatures, it's going to be something like this. Are electronic signatures legally binding in real estate contracts? 1, only in some states. 2, no, they are not recognized. 3, yes, in all states. 4, only with notarization. I'm going to get rid of 4. We need to get rid of one more. All right, Tanisha says get rid of 2, so we're getting rid of 2, so we get rid of 2 and 4. Once we do that, we read the question over again. Are electronic signatures legally binding in real estate contracts? So we got only in some states and yes in all states. What are we going to answer? One or 3? All right, we got one that says yes in all states. And I'll give 5 seconds for somebody to disagree. All right, we're going to go with yes in all states. All right. Mutual assent in real estate contracts is best demonstrated by, what's mutual assent? Mutual assent is the offer and acceptance. Probably the most 2 things that can happen in the contract validity process. So we need to know the definition of mutual assent and the other things that it's called, because it's called mutual consent, it's called meeting of the minds, it's called offer and acceptance. All right. So mutual assent in a real estate contract is best demonstrated by, is it 1, an oral agreement over the phone? Is it 2, a handshake agreement? Is it 3, signed written offer and acceptance? Is it 4, email correspondence expressing interest? I'm getting rid of 4. We need to get rid of one more. All right, so somebody said get rid of 2. Did somebody say get rid of 2?
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna get rid of 2 and 4. So mutual assent in a real estate contract is best demonstrated by, is it 1, over oral agreement over the phone, or is it 2 or 3, a signed written offer and acceptance? Which one of these are we gonna pick? All right, Tanisha, great job. I agree. Because see, the thing is, I was just talking the definition and told the answer. But that's how you want to know what this is. Because guess what? Stop the share. It's right in our book, y'all. Right there. Mutual consent is what they call it in the book. But when you go down here to your definitions, clear, unequivocal, offer and acceptance with the underlying meaning of the minds. So we got mutual consent, offer and acceptance, meaning of the minds. They all mean the same thing. But the test ain't gonna ask you, well, what's mutual consent? They did that time. But if you know the definition, you know offer and acceptance is what mutual consent or mutual assent is. All right. Remember, these are definitions. There's no trick. They're not throwing us any curveballs. It's straight down the middle, right? There's a definition questions that we got to know. All right. And they're going to access this stuff 800 different ways. All right. Next question. Identify the term that describes the situation where the contract is terminated due to the fulfillment of all terms and conditions. Again, identify the term that describes the situation where a contract is terminated due to the fulfillment of all terms and conditions. What is that called? Is it rescission? Is it performance? Is it mutual agreement? Is it operation of law? All right,
We can't see the screen again.
there y'all go. There y'all go. All right, let me know. Let me know. All right, my bad, y'all. Obviously, that's how I motivate. I'm just be going, man. Y'all got to stop me. Y'all got to slow me down. All right. Identify the term that describes the situation where a contract is terminated due to the fulfillment of all its terms and conditions. Is it rescission? Is it performance? Is it mutual agreement? Is it operational law? I'm getting rid of operational law. We need to get rid of one more. All right. Let's see if somebody says something in the chat. Okay. Did somebody say get rid of 3? Did you say that, Tanisha? Get rid of 3?
No, I didn't say that. That was
Oh.
for the last question.
Okay. So we need to get rid of one of these 3, the first 3. Rescission, performance, mutual agreement. All right, so we need to okay, Maria said get rid of 3. I agree. Identify the term that describes a situation where a contract is terminated due to the fulfillment of all its terms and conditions. Is it rescission or performance? It's going to be 1 or 2, y'all. All right, Tanisha, you're saying rescission is the answer to the question, right?
I was saying that, but I'm guessing, so I don't know.
Okay, so these are here. This is a learning lesson. It's not going to be rescission. It's going to be performance. This is the definition of performance. And so let me go back to the book on this. And we see the thing, hopefully, Tanisha, is that you'll never forget that. Because they're gonna ask you that. And what I did was, and we haven't gotten there yet, because we just need to see the questions first, is what I did was I put all of the questions that's like that all in one area. So you can see the different ways that they're gonna ask you about it. So right here, down here, performance, termination of contract is performance. And what does performance mean? Let's see, do they tell us what performance means? They don't give us the definition of performance in here. I don't like that. All right. All right, so let's just do this then. Stop the share. And I'm gonna go over here and we're gonna type it up here. Now, Tanisha, this is what I'm saying. When you're taking the test questions, not at the test site, but just when you're studying, and you get that question and you narrowed it down to those two, and you think you're guessing, go look up the definition for those two words. All right? Or look at your note cards and see what performance means, or see what rescission means, and use that to answer the question, because what that's going to do is going to allow you to remember it. All right? So what we're
you can use note card
not
when you take.
not at the test, but this is what I'm saying. Hopefully y'all gonna get on this and start trying to answer questions without the class, right? And so when you're studying, like when you're on CompuCram or when you're on Prep Agent or when you're on PSI and you're by yourself and you're just practicing and studying for the test, you know, and you get to that point where you've eliminated two, now you got two answers, you're really not sure, look up the definition. All right. And when you do that, you're going to see, let me share my screen. You're going to see in real estate, performance refers to fulfilling the obligations outlined in the real estate contract. This can include the sale of the property where the seller transfers the property to the buyer. A legal remedy that's specific performance. See, a legal remedy. See, that specific performance, a legal remedy. It says it right there. So we tackle two things. But here, and now, also what we're going to do is we're going to look up rescission. Rescission in real estate is the cancellation of a contract, usually due to fraud, misrepresentation, or other legal reasons. Soon as we read the definition, we would have known that that's not it, right? So once we get to that point and we've eliminated two, hopefully we still got the right answer. Look up the definition. And then what you do is you write them down. I guarantee you remember that you got to write that down every time you get to the point where you can't remember it, write it down. Because guess what? This is contracts. This ain't land use, right? Maybe you don't do that in land use when you're doing the studies and stuff like that, but you better know this in contracts. And so that's how one of the ways I would get competent with knowing the definitions, because that's another definition question. All right. And so that's how I would tackle that. We got to get it from the point where it's guesswork to we got a high reasonability, we got a high confidence that we know exactly what that word means. All right. So where were we at? No, we wasn't there. We were here. All right. So this is going to be performance. All right, next question. A buyer enters into a contract for a residence. After the inspection, it is discovered that the seller knowingly omitted significant foundation issues. What is the most appropriate action for a buyer? So now wait, this ain't a definition question. This is more of an application of what we've learned. So it says the buyer enters into a contract for a residence. After the inspection, it's discovered that the seller knowingly omitted significant foundation issues. They lied. What is the most appropriate action for the buyer? Is it 1, demand a reduction in price? Is it 2, proceed with the sale unconditionally? Is it 3, seek to rescind the contract? Is it 4, accept the property, sue later? I'm going to definitely get rid of 4. I'm definitely getting rid of that one. All right. So reading the question again, let me move it down so y'all can see it. A buyer enters into a contract for a residence. After the inspection, it's discovered that the seller knowingly omitted significant foundation issues. What's the most appropriate action for the buyer? Is it 1, demand a reduction in the sales price? Is it 2, proceed with the sale unconditionally? Is it 3, seek to rescind the contract? I got rid of 4. We need to get rid of 1 more. All right. Tanisha said get rid of 2. I agree. Once we get rid of our 2, we read the question over again. It can never get too old. A buyer enters into a contract for a residence. After the inspection, it's discovered that the seller knowingly omitted significant foundation issues. What's the most appropriate action for the buyer? Is it 1, demand a reduction in the sales price, or is it 3, seek to rescind the contract or seek to rescind the contract? Which one do y'all think y'all would do? All right. We got a couple people saying 3, and that's right. You can't trust this person. They lied up front, and you found them in a lie. I'm not doing business with you, especially not to the point where I'm buying a house. All right. All right. A buyer discovers that the square footage of a property was significantly overstated in the contract. What is the most appropriate action for the buyer? Again, this is not a definition question. So now y'all can see why I say we got to get our definition questions right. Because these are the type of questions where it's going to be a couple answers that seem like they could be right. But in definition questions, there's only one objective really answer that's going to be right. These are the ones that got a little bit of confusion in them, if you will. But it says a buyer discovers the square footage of a property was significantly overstated in the contract. And a lot of times agents do that. They do that. They include the basement area and the main living area, and they shouldn't do that. It makes it look bigger. Zillow does that because they're trying to sell properties. But it says they discover an error in the square footage of the property and is significantly overstated. What is the most appropriate action? Is it 1, request a price reduction? Is it 2, seek damages for misrepresentation? Is it 3, rescind the contract due to misrepresentation? Is it 4, accept the property as is? I'm getting rid of 4. All right. I'm getting rid of 4. We need to get rid of 1 more. This is a great question too, by the way. And this is one where you're going to want to eliminate, period. You're going to want to eliminate on the test, here in the class, when you're studying alone, when you're studying in a group or whatever, eliminate these answers. So I just need somebody to, okay. Yeah, and most of the time too, if it's something like significantly overstated or it's been like a misrepresentation, reducing the purchase price may not be a remedy that you can do. So Tanisha, you're right. I would get rid of 1. That's the next worst answer. So we got rid of 1 and 4. So that leaves us with seek damages for misrepresentation or rescind the contract due to misrepresentation. Again, the buyer discovers that the square footage of a property was significantly overstated. What is the most appropriate action for the buyer? Is it to seek damages for misrepresentation or rescind the contract due to misrepresentation? And it's a key to this question that y'all might not know, but as we get more questions in, you'll start to pick up these little subtleties about these questions. And Tanisha said she picked 3, and I agree with 3. Seek damages for misrepresentation. Well, we know, or we will know, that there's 2 types of misrepresentation: unintentional misrepresentation and intentional misrepresentation. If you know that there's two types of misrepresentation, you know that you can't hold somebody liable for unintentional misrepresentation. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to. I thought it was. Hell, I got an appraisal last year and they told me that that was the square footage. So you can't seek damages for misrepresentation. They thought it was true. It wasn't intentional. You just made a mistake. But that's the next level once we answer enough of questions. And when you see a question like this, you're going to be like, okay, rescind a contract due to misrepresentation. All right. Next question. A buyer is interested in a property that has received multiple offers. How should their broker advise them to proceed? Now, remember when we were going over this, the bulletin, this was that last one. It says that this is about multiple offers. And it says that a buyer is interested in a property that has received multiple offers. How should their broker receive? We got to understand that question because we're not talking about the seller. We're talking about the buyer. So let me paint the picture. In this instance, say, for instance, you got your real estate license. You have a buyer. You find their perfect house. Right? It's right by the lake. It's beautiful. You know, it's just a really, really dope property. All right. You go and you call a listing agent to show the property. She say, hey, we already got four offers on it. They're asking you, how should you proceed with your buyer in that instance? You found the buyer a house. They love it. You go see it. And when you go see it, you call the other realtor and say, hey, we really like this property. And then the other realtor says, hey, the listing agent says, we got four offers on it. So they're asking you, how do you proceed in this instance? Submit the highest possible offer, wait for the other offers to be rejected, offer below asking to negotiate, withdraw interest to avoid a bidding war. All right. I don't like any of those answers, honestly, but I'm going to get rid of wait for other offers to be rejected. And Tanisha got rid of that one too. So Tanisha, we're going to count that as the one you got rid of. I'll get rid of another one. I'm going to get rid of offer below asking to negotiate. All right. Read the question again. A buyer's interested in a property that has received multiple offers. How should their broker advise them to proceed? Is it submit the highest offer, withdraw interest? Submit the highest offer, or two. Which one did we got? Which one we got rid of below asking price to negotiate? Okay, so yeah, we still got 1 and 4. All right, so is it submit the highest offer possible or withdraw interest to avoid bidding war? We got a couple people saying 1, and that's the best answer. I don't like the question, but of the 4, that's the best answer to me. All right, Maria, everybody answered 1 on that one. Now, including me. All right, next question. What is the purpose of earnest money in a real estate transaction? What is the purpose of earnest money in a real estate transaction? To cover closing costs, to secure the property, to show the buyer's good faith, to fund the appraisal. I'm getting rid of to fund the appraisal. We need to get rid of 1 more. All right, somebody say get rid of 2. I agree. So we got rid of 2 and 4. What is the purpose of earnest money in a real estate transaction? Is it to cover closing costs or is it to show the buyer's good faith? 1 or 3. All right, I'm gonna give a couple more minutes for y'all to respond. All right, we got 2 people say 3. Now 3 people say 3 because I agree with that. We're gonna keep it moving. All right. What is a common legal consequence of a breach of contract in a real estate transaction? Is it 1, mandatory arbitration? 2, immediate property transfer? 3, potential contract termination? 4, automatic contract renewal. I'm getting rid of 4. If somebody that legally now we also need to look at if any of these are legal remedy or not remedies, but legal consequences. All right, but I'm getting rid of automatically contract. We're only going to renew the contract if somebody breached. So we need to get rid of one more. Is it mandatory arbitration, immediate property transfer, or potential contract termination? What is the legal consequence in this instance? We need to get rid of one. Need to get rid of one more of those. It's 2 really bad answers on there too, out of the 3. So we're gonna get rid of 2. And remember, when y'all see stuff like mandatory, ain't nothing mandatory. So we're gonna get rid of that one too, but it's gonna be potential contract. I just wanted to show you like mandatory, these types of words, immediate, those, like you can kind of, and then it says property transfer. So okay, so we somebody breached, we're gonna immediately transfer the property. So we can get to the questions once we start eliminating the noise. And even if we can get rid of, because like I said, if this wasn't there, if this answer wasn't there and this answer wasn't there, and it was only these 2, we would pass the test with like an 85, 90, maybe more. So that's the power of getting rid of the eliminating. All right. Next question. A real estate agent offers to list a property for sale at no charge. The homeowner agrees. Which essential element is missing for this to be considered a valid contract? Again, a real estate agent offers to list a property for sale at no charge. The homeowner agrees. What essential element is missing for this to be considered a valid contract? Is it offer, acceptance, consideration, legality? I'm getting rid of legality. Somebody said get rid of 1. So we got all acceptance and consideration. Once we get to this point, we read it over again, and a real estate agent offers to list a property for sale at no charge. The homeowner agrees. Which essential element is missing for this to be considered a valid contract? Is it acceptance or consideration? All right, we got 1 person come in, 2 people. And that's a definition question. We got to get it right. I agree. Great job. And keep it moving. What is true about void contracts? Stop. The only thing that I know about void contracts is if you don't have competent parties, consideration, mutual assent, legal purpose, it ain't valid. That's all. That's when you see these types of questions, this is your opportunity to recite the tenets of a valid contract. That's how you keep remembering them, right? So what is true about a valid contract? They are legally enforceable if agreed upon. They lack legal effect from the beginning. They can become valid with court approval. They are valid unless one party withdraws. I'm going to get rid of they are valid unless one party withdraws. Somebody else get rid of 1. All right, you said get rid of 1. So we got rid of 1 and 4. It says, what is true about void contracts? 2, they lack effect from the beginning. 3, they can become valid with court approval. What's the answer? All right, I will happen to agree with it. That is 2, and we're going to keep it moving. All right, it says, according to the statute of frauds, what I want y'all to do, when y'all hear that word, think of the definition. If you don't know it, go study it. Like it should be like this. Oh, statute of frauds, that means, right? That means if we don't know it, we got to go and study it. Put it on your list every day until we get done with contracts. Keep studying it. All right? According to the statute of frauds, real estate contracts must be signed by witnesses, approved by a lawyer, in writing to be enforceable, or notarized. I'm getting rid of notarized. We need to get rid of 1 more. That's a great elimination. Signed by witnesses. So every time somebody buy a house, they got to have witnesses sign it. Okay, good. So we got rid of 1 and 4. According to the statute of frauds, real estate contracts must be, is it approved by a lawyer or be in writing to be enforceable? Great. I agree. In writing to be enforceable. And then the last question, what is the purpose of earnest money deposit in real estate transactions? Is it 1, to cover closing costs, 2, to secure the seller's property, 3, demonstrate the buyer's intent to purchase, or 4, pay for a property appraisal? I'm getting rid of 4. And we already had a question like this. So this one should be quick. But this is just another way that they're going to ask us the same question about earnest money. We're going to get rid of 1. So what's the question? What is the purpose of an earnest money deposit in a real estate transaction? Is it 2, to secure the seller's property? Is it 3, to demonstrate the buyer's intent to purchase? We need to answer the question. All right, we got a couple of people saying 3. And I agree. So we finished with that. See what we did, how we did. We got 20 out of 20 correct. And there was some help there from me, but we went over time, but those were some really good contract questions. All right. So what we want to do with that is we want to look at them though. We want to hold up. We're going to look here. And we marked this item. So y'all might have got that one right, y'all. Y'all got that. Look at that. We marked 1. Let's go to that question. Y'all got it right. Remember I said automatically void? And I don't like this question because it should be void. But we got that one right. And you see that a lot of people answered this all types of ways. So to me, that's a bad question. But y'all got that one right, and I was wrong, because I said automatically void. Let's go in here and read this one. In the realm of real estate law, contracts are fundamental instruments that outline the terms and conditions agreed upon by the parties involved in the transaction. A valid contract must meet certain criteria, including offer, acceptance, consideration, legal purpose, and competent parties. Consideration in particular refers to something of value that is exchanged between parties. It is a critical element that distinguishes a binding contract from a mere agreement or promise. An unenforceable contract is one that, while it may meet basic elements of a contract, cannot be enforced by a court due to some other legal rule. In the context of real estate contracts where one party agrees to sell the property without receiving anything in return, is the absence of consideration, something that value is exchanged, renders a contract unenforceable and void, y'all. Because they're teaching us that if you don't have the elements of a valid contract, it's void and it's not enforceable from the beginning. So that's why you have all these people disagreeing with it. Because unenforceable really should not have been an answer on here. It should have been void. And I'm gonna read why it's not automatically void. Let's go down here and read why it's not. Lastly, automatically void are those contracts that are illegal or involve illegal activities from the outset. The scenario described does not suggest any illegal activity, merely a lack of consideration, which does not automatically void the contract. It makes it unenforceable. So there's the answer to that. The only thing that makes a contract automatically void is when it's illegal from the onset. It's illegal for a legal purpose. But so that was a great job on that one, y'all. Good job on that one. For real. All right. Let's look at some of the other, we won't go over all of them, but let's just go over a few. Some of the tougher ones. Now, loan to value, that was a finance question, so we don't have to worry about that. What's this one? Modifications must be in writing to be enforceable. We don't necessarily go over that. I'm looking for some of the ones that primary purchase of a lease, we don't need to worry about this. Okay, here's specific performance. Suing for specific performance is the correct remedy in this case, obviously in this context, because it directly addresses the breach by the contract by seeking to enforce the contract terms rather than merely compensating for the breach with damages. This legal action is predicated on the principle of real estate, principle that real estate is unique and monetary compensation will not be sufficient to remedy the harm caused by the breach. The court can order the buyer to complete the purchase, thereby fulfilling the contractual obligations. This remedy is especially fitting in real estate transactions where the specific property in question cannot be duplicated or replaced. But really what it is the remedy. Legal remedy is going to be specific performance, okay? And then the answer, I think Tanisha, the young lady that left, said this one, that was the second best answer, but that was far from being the best answer. Let's see, consideration. Yeah, we know what consideration is. That's good. Graduate, at least we got that one right. Look how many people got that one wrong. This is just a bad question. But if you know the definitions of them, and then this is how. So if you want to know this, this is a way that you can learn about different types of leases and stuff right there in the answer. Remember, we use the answer to become competent too. All right. Here's it says a real estate contract with one is unenforceable. We went over that one. This is the buyer keeps the rate lock. That's the one about the rate lock question. Electronic signatures, yes, in all states. I wanted to look at this one too because I didn't know it was legal in yes in all states. But let's read why. It says yes in all states is the correct answer because eSign Act or UETA collectively ensured that electronic signatures are recognized as legally binding across all states in the United States for real estate transactions, among others. This legal framework supports the validity of electronic signatures, provided the parties to the contract choose to use electronic documents and signatures, and all other legal requirements for a valid contract are met, such as offer acceptance and consideration. The adoption of these acts by the states means that electronic signatures on real estate contracts are enforceable, streamlining the process and making it more efficient without compromising legal validity. All right, what's this one here? Mutual assent. We know mutual assent is offering acceptance, and you should know this when 93% of the people is getting it right. All right. Yeah, we got this one wrong. Identify the term that describes the situation. Well, we corrected it, but we got, and 61%. So this wasn't all that obvious. It was a lot of people answered A and B, A and C on this one. But what is performance? Performance is the term that accurately describes the situation where a contract is terminated due to the fulfillment of all its terms and conditions by the parties involved. It says this means that each party has completed their respective obligations as agreed upon in the contract, leading to a natural conclusion. The concept of performance is central to the contract law, as it signifies the successful execution of the agreement, allowing all parties to move forward without any remaining contractual duties. This outcome is often the goal when contracts are formed, as it indicates a smooth and dispute-free conclusion to the agreement. I don't know about that all the time. All right, what is this one? Seek to rescind the contract. Let's go over these real quick. Why would you seek to rescind the contract? Rescinding the contract is the most appropriate action for the buyer under these circumstances. Rescission is the remedy that nullifies the contract, returning both parties to their pre-contractual state as if the contract had never been made. This action is justified when there has been significant misrepresentation or omission that goes to the heart of the contract, such as knowingly hiding major defects like foundation issues. Rescission is particularly suitable here because it addresses the breach's fundamental nature, allowing the buyer to walk away from the transaction that was entered into under false pretenses. All right, good job on that one. Rescind the contract due to misrepresentation. That's another one. It says rescinding the contract due to misrepresentation is correct course of action in this scenario. Rescission is a remedy that nullifies the contract and restores both parties to their original positions as if the contract had never been executed. The remedy is particularly appropriate when the fundamental aspects of contract, such as size of the property being purchased, has been misrepresented. Rescission is based on the principle that contracts should be formed with free and informed consent of both parties. When significant misrepresentation occurs, it undermines this consent, justifying the rescission of the contract. In this case, the significant overstatement of the property square footage directly impacts the buyer decision-making and value they receive, making rescission a justifiable remedy. It says, let's see. We only got a couple more to go around. I don't know if we're going to read any more. Let's read this one. Why they say accept the highest possible offer. Let's read why though. Submitting the highest possible offer is the most strategic advice a broker can give to a buyer interested in a property with multiple offers. This approach increases the buyer's chance of having their offer accepted by making it financially more appealing to the seller. In a competitive market, sellers are inclined to favor offers that are not only quick to close, but also provides them with the highest financial gain. By advising the buyer to submit the highest possible offer, the broker leverages the principle of supply and demand and the buyer's advantage, acknowledging that the higher offer is more likely to capture the seller's attention and preference. We're going to talk about that one when we get the valuation, because I kind of disagree with it, but that for this question, that's the answer. Yeah, earnest money is the show buyers good faith. We know that. We should have known that 80% of them got it right. Legal consequences, potential contract termination. That's easy money. We know what consideration is. Just remember it's something of value and it's essential to the contract being valid or a promise. They lack legal effect from beginning. That's what's true about void contracts. And so statute of frauds must be in writing to be enforceable. And then the purpose of earnest money deposit. So let me ask y'all this question, y'all, before we end the night. First off, great class. Great class, number one. Real quick, Maria and Jasmine, are y'all getting this stuff, especially now that we're answering the questions?
Yeah, I think I'm getting it.
It's coming along. You coming along with it?
I think so.
All right. So if I'm available on the weekend, I don't have anything to do this weekend like before. So if y'all want to get together, I'm gonna send out a text to see if anybody want to get together on the weekend. I'm gonna do that right now. And I'm gonna put class is over. Let me know who's available for a Saturday class. All right, ladies, that's it. Great job. Keep studying the definitions. And we're going to finish this with Saturday's class. And we're probably going to be answering more questions. So in the last 2 days, we've answered like 45 questions on contracts, which are all good questions, but there's a bunch more that we need to answer, and we will as we keep going. All right. So you ladies have a great rest of your night, and great job today, man. This is a real good class. All right.
Good
So
night.
I'll see y'all. Yep.